Hey friends, we're talking today in our podcast about a national, actually it's a global epidemic called loneliness. Americans and those around the world seem to be more lonely than ever. And you know, when we're dealing with crises like we are right now in Northwest Indiana with the horrific storms that came through, it just exacerbates the need to be connected, to be known, to be seen, to be loved, to belong. And these are all things we're going to talk about in our podcast today. We've got some really exciting plans to unveil to you as terms of living stones and what we're doing to lean in to this whole vision of doing life together. We believe that life transformation happens best, spiritual transformation, in the context of groups, being with people, being connected. That's the vision we have from Scripture, and that's the vision we want to live out here in our culture at Living Stones. So we're going to talk about some practical ways to do that, and there's some practical things we're going to be sharing with you over the next 3 weeks in this amazing series we're doing called Together. We encourage you to go online and check that out. I think you'll really be blessed. We'll see you in the podcast today.
Hey, welcome to the Ron Johnson Discipleship Podcast.
So glad you guys are with us. We're coming off a major challenge here in Northwest Indiana. In fact, some of you are still probably without power at this point. I was surprised actually yesterday when I asked the congregation, I think I did a second service, how many of you are still without power. Probably half of the people that showed up to church were still without power. So by the time this podcast airs, which will be Thursday morning, I'm hoping that most of Lake County, from what I hear, will be back in business, but it's been significant. I don't know that I've ever seen anything in my lifetime this expansive, across all of northern Indiana. We were out driving the other day in various communities, running some errands, and I was just in awe again of the tree damage mostly, and it's history making. Yeah,
NIPSCO said this is the worst they have ever seen.
Yeah.
300,000 people affected, which is crazy. I mean, it was out of nowhere. I was talking to some friends from Florida. They have hurricanes.
Yeah.
But for us, this came out of nowhere. I went to work that morning thinking it's a normal day.
I thought it was funny when Pastor Aaron got up on Sunday and made the comment that we're almost out of hurricane season here in Indiana, because this is really highly unusual weather.
Highly unusual for us, yeah.
Highly unusual. Yeah. And then not to mention the flooding down in the central part of the state on the White River. A lot of damage around Indianapolis, which was crazy. That's like once in a lifetime kind of stuff that you see. And I think, which leads us into kind of our topic today, what exacerbates crises like this is when you do not have a strong social network, when you have communities that are not very well connected, or individual people that are not very well connected to other people. It just highlights the tragedy, of loneliness and isolation, which is epidemic right now in America, especially since COVID. And I wanted to kind of lean into this, and then even more importantly, talk about not just the problem, but the beauty of the church of Jesus Christ, and what God's plan is for people to be connected in meaningful ways, which is what we kind of talked about on Sunday. So let me kick off with an interesting study that just came out. This was fresh off of Fox News. Researchers were shocked. This is interesting, that urban loneliness rates exceeded rural areas among a large study cohort, which was 135,000 adults. This study took place in Great Britain. First of all, what they found was a little bit counterintuitive, that you would think that when you're surrounded by more people, you would be less lonely. But we're finding that our urban areas are hotbeds for isolation and loneliness, which also leads to mental health problems. And we're seeing a lot of this, in our big cities, where there's just all kinds of social unrest and violence and all kinds of things going on.
So proximity doesn't mean connectedness.
No, not at all. So you can be surrounded by, again, they talked about, these are some of the biggest areas in Britain, throughout England, all the major cities. I'm trying to find the exact data here. It says reflected the urban paradox theory, where those in major cities that offer greater economic, cultural, and social advantages often report lower levels of satisfaction, connectivity, and happiness compared to people in rural areas.
So being rich And being in a city with high density does not mean connectedness.
Not at all. In fact, it shows just the opposite. So 44% of the respondents said the pandemic increased their feelings of loneliness. So we definitely saw, the global pandemic exacerbated this problem. This was a study that was done by the U.S. Surgeon General. I think it was back in 2023, 2024. 1 in 3 Americans feel lonely. 1 in 4 lack adequate social and emotional support. 20% of adults in America experience loneliness, quote, a lot of the day yesterday. During the height of the COVID epidemic, so feeling incredibly lonely at that time. Research consistently shows higher loneliness, this is interesting, among young adults, especially those under 50, people living alone, lower income Americans, older adults who experience social isolation, and individuals who have experienced loss, divorce, unemployment, disability, discrimination, geographic isolation. So interesting that while our young people are more connected than ever electronically, digitally, they are more lonely than ever, which kind of led us into, providentially, this series that we just kicked off yesterday called Together, where we're really beginning to unveil some exciting stuff at Living Stones as it relates to getting people connected in groups. We're kind of changing our language a little bit from just life groups to groups, which is much broader because we're going to be unveiling several new opportunities for people to find connection in meaningful ways. So I'm really, really excited about that. But I find it interesting, theologically, when you go all the way back to Genesis chapter 1 and the creation account. Before the fall, before sin entered the world, God said that something was not good. Everything he says, very good, this is very good, this is very good. He creates man, and then after he creates Adam, he says, not good for you to be alone. Because the whole idea, God is a God who exists relationally, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. He creates us in his image and likeness. And so from the very definition of what it means to be human, is to find yourself in relationship with God, relationship with other people. And when you're not in relationship with God and other people, we have big problems. And I think we're seeing that, in our society today. So I tried to make a case for that yesterday, and I want to encourage anybody who's listening to the podcast who might not have been able to come out and be a part of our church service. We'll include the link at the end of this podcast today where you can go and kind of hear the kickoff of the series if you were not able to be here in person. But I basically started in Acts 2:42, which is the birth of the early church and people immediately forming community. And the point I tried to make was, what was the catalyst for this? Why did we find all these new believers gathering together in homes and being, incredibly devoted to prayer and the Word and fellowship and the Lord's Supper and eating meals together? What was the catalyst for all of this? And of course, the catalyst was a man named Peter who got up and preached the very first sermon and saw 3,000, maybe not the first sermon, but the first sermon post-resurrection, and saw 3,000 believers added in an instant. And the question that we tried to bring up, of course, was, wow, what will we do if 3,000 people got saved instantaneously? How do you care for all those people? And of course, the answer is you gotta get small. You gotta move from rows of people to circles of people face to face that are interacting. And that's, this has kind of been our experience here at Living Stones. We experienced some really rapid growth during COVID, post-COVID, and we found lots more people showing up. And I think our heart was, man, how do we care for these people well? And realizing, you and I talking as pastors, we don't know everybody's name. We want to, but we don't. And I guess that's not such a bad thing, because at some point, when God's blessing with tremendous growth, your goal is not to know everybody's name, but your goal is really to make sure everyone's name is known by someone. And that's the beauty, of small groups. So your thoughts on yesterday's sermon, or not yesterday, this is Thursday, Wednesday. We're talking Sunday. About yesterday, but Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, I think the desire to be known the desire to be in community, to fellowship, what do you want to call it? I would like to say to be known is greatly underestimated in our culture today.
Yeah.
And, if I say to you, hey, you're not going to be able to drink water for 6 days, you'd be like, that's crazy. I have to have water to live. If I say to you, hey, you're not going to be able to eat for 6 months, you're going to be like, that's crazy. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
But if I say to you, hey, you are not going to have deep connections for 6 months, most people be like, I don't see any different. Like I don't even know what that means. What does deep connection actually mean?
Right.
It's a essential part of our needs to be healthy, and medically sometimes even just to be alive. Essential part of who we are that I think in our culture today we have grossly underestimated.
Yeah.
And what you just described and laying out the biblical case for it is that we were ingrained, we were designed by God to need just as much we need water and need food, need oxygen, we need intimacy and community.
When we were doing the church plant in Chicago, and you were a part of that, we were up there for 5 years. I met a woman who was here from another country, and she said something that has always just stunned me. It made a big impression in my heart. She said, if I were to die today, nobody on the planet would miss me. That was how isolated she was. She came over. She didn't have any family over here. So if I died in my apartment, nobody would know. And I just thought, wow, how tragic. And so this is where we get in our vulnerable populations, like our seniors and young adults, those who maybe are not living with a family, living alone. It's to your point, it's an especially vulnerable place. It's not good for us to be alone. We need to belong. We need to be known. We need to be seen. We need to be loved. And when that doesn't happen, bad things happen, culturally. And I think we're witnessing some of that unraveling of the social fabric in American culture right now, and a lot of it has to do with this isolation that people feel, the emotional isolation.
Yeah, and I think I heard Charlie Kirk said this. He said basically, you want the formula to not be in poverty. And he basically says, I forgot the specific. Basically, get married, have kids.
Yeah.
Couple of just very practical things. In other words, be part of a healthy community, have a healthy family.
Yeah.
That itself insulates from so many social ills.
Yeah, so, and that's a tremendous point you're bringing out, because we have ongoing marriage ministry here at Living Stones. Why is that so important? Because your emotional needs, your social needs, your relational needs are fundamentally supposed to be met in the context of a great home life, a healthy mom and dad, healthy kids, time spent together, nurturing, loving, caring, all this good stuff that happens in healthy families. When that breaks down, that automatically sets you at a disadvantage. If you've been divorced or you're all alone, or you're trying to raise your kids as a single mom. I mean, these are hard situations emotionally sometimes. And so we want to start with the family, but then after the family, or those that maybe don't have a family, thank God for the body of Christ, and thank God for the church coming together, because as we try to bring out Sunday, it's not about showing up at services, it's about being added. The believers in the book of Acts believed on the Lord Jesus Christ, they were baptized. All this happened publicly in the context of community. And then thirdly, they were added, which meant, and I love that word in the Greek, it meant they were joined together for a purpose. And so many people are looking for their purpose. Where do I belong? Where do I fit? You belong in a spiritual family on an incredible mission that Jesus has given us, and we get to do this thing together. And that's the design that God had to make sure that our needs are met, and that we stay healthy, and that we are known, and we are loved.
One thing you said, I thought, is probably, in my opinion, should be the takeaway for everyone. If there's one takeaway, is that you said the time when you need to have relationship, when you're desperate for relationship and you start building that, it's probably too late. It's like if I want apple today, planting an apple seed today is not going to be helpful.
Right. That tree should have been planted years ago.
I want to plant the tree a decade ago, then have apple trees. So the longing for deep, intimate relationship, when you realize you need it, like it's very difficult to have that immediately. The wise person go plant that tree 10 years ago before you need it. And you might not have that level of relationship right now. The best thing you can do right now is plant that tree today. Is to work.
You got to start somewhere.
You got to work, and the implication is it takes work.
Yeah.
Like you said, just being proximity of people, like we just talked about in large cities, doesn't necessarily alleviate the loneliness.
Well, and I love, to your point, it takes work. Salvation does not take work. It's by grace. But intimacy, relational connection does take work. And that's why it says in Acts 2:42, they devoted themselves. The idea is you're staying committed to the vision of relationship in spite of all the obstacles and challenges. Like, I could give you a million reasons why people don't want to take the time to join a small group or to be on a serve team or other areas where people can really get connected. I'm too busy, I'm too this, I'm too that. Well, all those are true to some extent. Americans are busy people in general. But you can't be too busy for things that matter the most. And it's not just in time of a crisis, right? Like, in a crisis, you really need to have
that's a wake-up call.
Yeah. But what about all the positive,
right.
Like just normal life?
Right.
We're saying that being connected relationally brings so many benefits that you should be devoted to it. You should press through all the excuses that we all have, and you should make time to have people in your life.
It's like exercising, right?
Yep.
It's like a lot of times people don't start exercising until they get a heart attack. Okay, that's good, but you know what's even better is before you get a heart attack,
right.
Start exercising so that you don't have a heart attack, right?
No, exactly. But how many people have been kind of launched into a new lifestyle because of a crisis?
Yeah.
And so again, I hope that even like what we're dealing with now is a wake up call. Like, folks, if you're in the dark all by yourself with no electricity, and you have nobody that is following up with you that even knows your situation, you need to change that, because I just have this feeling this is not the last crisis that Northwestern Indiana residents are going to deal with. Life is full of unexpected situations, and it might not be a weather crisis, as you point out. It could be a health crisis. There's all kinds of crises that we face.
Political crisis, economic crisis, there's a million things.
But we need each other, and the time to get connected is now. And so, Sunday, I tried to deal with a few sacred cows that I think are worth repeating. One is realizing that the early church, after Peter's message, 3,000 people give their lives to Christ. That's the definition of a megachurch. A megachurch in America is any church, I believe, that's like over 1,000 people, and that's less than 1% of all the churches in America. Of course, some are much larger than that. But there's nothing fundamentally evil about lots of people coming to know Christ. And this whole idea that somehow if a church is big or has lots of people, that is not a good place, or you're not going to be known or loved or whatever. So go to a small church. We wanted to shoot that sacred cow, because all through the book of Acts you see extraordinary growth where the gospel is preached, people are coming to Christ, people's lives are being transformed. And I think the big part was after Peter launched everything, then it was the church loving people. It was the church engaged. It was the church inviting people over to their homes, practicing generosity, right? Having meals together, doing life together. And so we got to get rid of that idea that somehow big is bad. And I also made it clear that small is not bad either. We weren't comparing the goodness of a church on the size, because people are in different cultures, different situations, et cetera. But what I was trying to destroy was that kind of mega church mentality, or that somehow, the pastor, you put pastors on the pedestal and they all fall down. We're not wanting to be put on pedestals. We're just wanting to reach people. And we realize that the way to do that best is by creating a lot of ways for people to get connected in small groups. So that was one of the sacred cows. The other sacred cow I want to highlight is this idea that, well, I love Jesus, but I'm not into the church. And I made the joke about the fact that, that's like me making fun of your wife. I like you, but I can't stand your wife. Well, we wouldn't have much of a friendship. Because if I don't like your wife, you guys are a package deal. It's the same thing with Jesus and his bride. They're a package deal. You can't just hate the church because the church is imperfect. You have to love the church, and you have to be a part of the church. And so encouraging people to be added to the church, meaning you have a walk with Jesus, you're baptized, and then you're added. You become part of this incredibly awesome and yet still imperfect spiritual family. Important things to keep in mind in the large scale. And then the whole idea too, as I pointed out, a lot of books come out where just gathering in your home, having some coffee, reading a Bible verse, that's church. That's like New Testament model for church. And we saw in the Bible, they met in the temple and they also met in homes. Both of them are different and yet essential. They each play, a vital role in our lives. So I thought those are some good takeaways from yesterday. Again, I encourage you go online and check out the message in its entirety. But we really tried to cast a vision kind of for where we're going. As a ministry. So maybe we could talk about that a little bit. The whole idea was that, we're not going to be able to fit on this property for another 20 years or 30 years, hopefully not 20 months. What are we doing about that? And so we've been working really hard as a pastoral team to basically say, okay, what is a model? What is a ministry framework that help us lead people to Christ, and then see them take their next steps, helps them grow, helps them first of all belong to the church. What does that look like? And then helps them grow. What does that look like? And then helps them lead. So talk about that, because you've been part of this process now for the last couple of months. What exciting things do people have to look forward to as we're moving down the road here? So
this might come off, I can put my business plan in mind, and it could come off kind of mechanical, but basically we want to create order and systems in place. Not because we just, system order for the sake of order. It's because we want to provide such a great environment to cultivate relationships.
Yeah.
And when we can do it in an organized, systematic way, we can serve our community much better.
I like what you say, that we're not pushing some rigid, cold, structural system model that's just a form with no life. The structure is there just to create the relational dynamics that are so important. And really, those relational dynamics are important because we believe that life transformation happens in groups with people. You cannot be transformed radically to be like Jesus if you're, a hermit in the desert all by yourself somewhere. I try to show that on Sunday, things like patience, kindness, forgiveness, all of these things happen in the context of other people. You don't learn forgiveness by yourself. There's no one to forgive. You learn forgiveness by being with imperfect people. So we're creating an environment where people can be with other people, and in the context of being with people, they can grow to be more like Jesus.
Yeah, and so, back to the system piece, I have a system in place with my marriage. Every Friday night, unless it's some major event, my wife and I are going to do date night. It might just be something simple. Stay at home. The kids go downstairs and we order out. So that's our system. But what's the purpose of the system? So we can have a system? No, the purpose of the system is because we say our relationship, our marriage, our intimacy is so important to us that we're going to protect it through a discipline. Does that make sense? So it's like, I'm going to go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So on Monday, not me right now, but I wish I had that order. But say I have that practice in place. On Monday, I'm not thinking, do I want to go to the gym today? No, I'm going to the gym.
It's already in place.
It's in place. I'm not letting my distractions, I'm not letting my emotions affect what's priority for me. That's the purpose of a good system. So every Friday night, we're busy, we're tired. No. We haven't connected this week. Debbie and we're going to connect. The system serves a greater purpose so that I am not interrupted by distractions or my emotions, or I'm tired or I'm lazy. So we want to create the infrastructure in place so we can create an awesome place for small groups and community, despite our distractions or our own, whatever things that happens. What I love
about what you said was, okay, so that principle not only applies to your marriage, which is a good marriage, growing marriage, but someone could take that principle and apply it to their marriage. In other words, we're trying to come up too with a system that's scalable and reproducible, because we're believing that there will be more than one Living Stones campus.
Yeah. So we're building a system that's independent of a certain personality.
Right.
Or a certain person's unique skill set. We want to build a system so that when we do launch another sphere of influence, maybe in a different city or another town, that we can say, hey, this system has our DNA. we master the system, we know how to work it really well, and we want to implement it for them. So for example, just going back to my marriage example, like my kids know it. They know Friday night is date night. Mom and dad are date night. They get on, that's when they can get on their devices, they do their own thing. And maybe when they get older, they get married, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to take my marriage for granted. Every Friday, I'm going to have a date night with my husband or my wife or whatever it is. It's scalable. It's a very simple system that could be scalable. That's what I mean by scale. It can be replicable. Right?
No, that's good. So what we're doing as a church is we're leaning in to that system. In other words, I, as a senior pastor, if we believe groups are the major mechanism for growth, transformation, relationship building, spiritual formation, all these things, then I'm going to be leading groups. One of the changes that we're making, which I think is bringing some clarity, is we're no longer doing our groups on a semester format, because people go, well, when's that semester start? When does it end? We're going to be going to a quarterly system, which is great. So we'll have January groups, April groups, but that'll really be cool because, again, it gives people on-ramps, off-ramps. So let's say you're a life group leader and you're going to take a break or you're tired. That doesn't mean you have to go all 4 quarters for a whole year. It means you can do 10 weeks, take the next 10 weeks off, maybe start back up, launch some new groups. But anyway, I think it's going to provide a lot of opportunity for people to, even with flexibility in their schedules, obviously. But what we are saying is, make a commitment to be a part of our family, which means in some way, you're going to either be in a group or you're going to be somewhere serving, which is another incredible way to get involved because that's also group related as well. But make a commitment to be a part of a group.
Yeah, so our system serves the purpose, right? We make sure the system doesn't serve the system.
Right.
If the system doesn't serve the purpose, we got to switch the system.
Right.
So what is the purpose of what we're trying to do? So again, let's talk about community. Let's talk about small groups. There's 2 things that we believe we can help elevate, okay? One is we talked about getting into community takes work, right? This is a threshold of risk taking. You got to go to someone's house. You got to meet people for the first time. There is a degree of discomfort. So the first thing we want to do is we want to, as much as we can, lower that bar. Okay, and we're going to talk about community groups and different things later. But the whole idea is, yes, it's going to take you some work. You got to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. But as much as we can, we want to lower that threshold so you can connect as easily as possible. So we're going to do our best to create a system to help people lower that barrier for people, as many people as possible, to be connected, because that's such a powerful community, such needed. So that's our first objective we want to do. The second objective is, you think about, not all communities are the same. Just like not all families are the same. Intimacy means different things to different people.
Right.
What we want to do is we really want to raise the bar of what fellowship and community look like. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So what we want to do in our small groups, we want to really, we want to have awesome small groups. And by that, we want to really raise the bar of intimacy and connection. So our system is to serve those 2 purposes, so our groups can be awesome, amazing, and serve a community well.
So we're belonging, which happens in the context of groups being seen and known and loved, and we'll talk about what that looks like and this coming Sunday, actually. But then the other goal, as you pointed out, is we want people to grow. But growth does not stop with us. Like, I don't grow just so I can feel good about myself. I'm growing into Christ likeness so that I could know Him and that I can be a part of His mission, which leads us to the third thing, which is lead. A lot of times people freak out about leading because they think, well, I'm not naturally a leader, and I'm not, dynamic personality or whatever leadership, attributes that they think that you need to be that they aren't. Leadership is just using our relational equity to take somebody a step farther in that person's walk with God. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be connected with other people who are maybe not as far along in their faith journey as you are, and just help them. And again, that happens over coffee, over dinner. It might happen playing pickleball, as we talked about. Some of these groups will be based on just things you're already doing, like you're already going to the Y and you're running. Or maybe you enjoy running for health purposes or whatever. Well, get together 5 or 6 people that also want to run and do that as a group and meet every Saturday for 10 weeks, during our quarterly, session here, and do that together and then grow. We're going to talk about what that looks like. It might be an evangelistic opportunity for you to invite people who like to play pickleball but aren't saved yet. And so you have pickleball in common, but we're going to help take that person on their next step and go deeper. And then the other thing I love about kind of the new model that we're rolling out here is everybody, as you pointed out, is different, and they all have different gifts. They have different passions. And so really it's an opportunity to unleash people's natural passions instead of having to create a brand new ministry at Living Stones to accommodate whatever your passion is. Now, basically what we're saying is, that's great. You want to go do outreach on Saturday morning and hand out, sandwiches to people that are poor living under a bridge somewhere in Chicago or whatever it is. Do it. Get together a bunch of people that share that same passion and form a group and go do it. And, and we're behind you, So really, to me, it's exciting. There's no end to the variety of groups that we want to have. But the whole goal being, as you pointed out, we want this system to work for everybody. So we got our on-ramps, we got training, we got great coaching from leaders. And the whole goal being, we want to see people come to know Jesus and grow in their faith and then be able to take what they've received and give it away to others. So there's going to be some leader training as well. Of course, all this will start to unfold in more depth over the next 3 weeks, but I'm really, really excited about it. I think it's going to help. There'll be a spot for everyone. There'll be an interest for everyone. There'll be opportunities for everybody, and I think we're just going to, of course, the goal being we want to just reach as many people as possible, with the good news of the gospel. So, anyway, we've been working really hard on that. I'm excited to see where it's going.
Yeah. I mean, we recognize that this is one, like you cite the statistics you cited, this is a major way that we can serve our community well. It's not, and I'm talking about outside of just the general sharing the gospel and helping people know Jesus. Community is such a desperately needed in our culture in America today. Yeah. It'll strengthen them physically, strengthen their marriage. It'll make people happier. It makes culture stronger. It makes community stronger. It makes nations stronger.
You were sharing something from a marketplace standpoint that I think is really good. Like, even when it comes to just to practical things like building healthy businesses or productivity or all these kinds of things, the most healthy workers are people who feel loved and valued and well connected and seen and heard and loved and all that. I mean, these principles apply across culture, but share that, because I thought that was a really good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, work satisfaction, happiness affects how productive you are. Imagine someone's mopey coming to work, they hate their work, they're unhappy with their marriage, and they don't want to get anything done. So having happy employees makes a company much more successful. But you and I are talking about the concept of emotionally resilience.
Yeah.
How do you be emotionally resilient? And this is a really, really needed attribute or skill set for high-level leaders and business owners and whatnot, because you face a lot of headwinds.
Yep.
You face a lot of trials and tribulations and attacks, and the market goes up, market goes down, and you got customer complaint, getting sued. There's a lot of stuff going on. So the most successful leaders are emotionally resilient. They're able to handle all those emotional attacks and be able to still make the correct decision and not lose their cool and freak out, and employees see the boss freak out. So emotional resilience, one of the studies have shown that emotional resilience comes through great community. It comes from people.
So it's hard to be emotionally strong if you're not
isolated
in a good community.
Isolated. So a lot of business owners actually they pay to join these business community groups so they can have sounding boards and reflections, and people will empathize to understand where they're coming from. They see monetary values and how important that is to help them grow and how their business becomes successful. So again, I like to emphasize, like, offering great communities as such values, no different than giving people food and water and air and all these different things, because those are all the things that people need to have a healthy life.
So in a business community, they're in a business environment, they're actually paying for community.
A lot of money.
Yeah,
your C12s,
Yep.
your different, your legacy, there's different, there's Christian ones or non-Christian ones.
So it's people getting together, common interests, talking about common challenges, and finding
share
support.
their struggles, find
Yep.
support,
and paying big money for that. And yet, folks, I'm telling you, the church is the best deal on planet Earth. We don't charge money for this amazing community that God is building. It's free every week, but it's free, but it does cost you something. It costs you, as you pointed out, committing Friday night to date night. You have to build your schedule.
I'll tell you a secret.
Yep.
Well, it's not really a secret. One of the reasons why these business groups charge money is because they want you to be serious about it. If you pay serious money to join this group, there's less chance you're going to miss it.
That's good. So they got skin in the game.
Skin in the game.
So we're going to start charging for every seat in the sanctuary.
He is joking.
It'll be seat rental, and then if you have to pay to come, you're going to be all the more serious about when you're there.
What did Jesus says? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
we're not charging people, but the point I'm trying to make.
That was a joke.
This is a joke. The point I'm trying to make is there's a principle of saying, you know what, when I'm committed to it, when I see value in it, I will make time, I will make energy to do that.
Yeah.
It's about everything. Exercise, eating healthy. It's the same thing. If you see value, make time for it. If you don't see value, you can make all kinds of excuses.
Yep. Yep.
We simply want to communicate. One of the most valuable things you can bring to you and your family and to your country and to your nation, to the state of Indiana, is to have healthy community so you can be healthy.
Yeah, that's so good. So that, we're excited. This week we're talking about belonging. Next week we're talking about growth. The following week we're talking about leadership. And then we're, of course, launching the fall series. The full vision of what we're talking about is not going to be unleashed until January. But a lot of exciting stuff for us to continue. Number one, to grow, to reach people, to have that church that's constantly multiplying, that's constantly overflowing, that's constantly at reaching maximum capacity so we can start new campuses. But in the process of all that, not ever having people feel lost or alone or unseen, because we're going to have this amazing, as you pointed out, amazing infrastructure that facilitates real, thriving human connection between people, and so that people are not lost. Now, as we pointed out, one of the challenges in the book of Acts was they were growing so rapidly, there were organizational challenges. The widows weren't being cared for properly, et cetera, et cetera. But those challenges were good challenges, and they were things that got fixed. They led to some great change. And in the process, the church got better and stronger. And so we just make a final plea. Number one, as I shared Sunday, please get added to the church. Please become part of our spiritual family. Move beyond, take that next step, move beyond just sitting in the sanctuary to being very, very intentional about doing your part. I'll just say this, another little sacred cow. I've heard it many times, people say, well, no one did this for me. And, I was sick and, nobody cared for me, and on and on and on. And when I really go back and look at the situation, I realize you have done nothing to invest in our church family in terms of relationally being connected. And so now when a crisis happens, you're all alone. And then you get mad at the church. The church is too big. We're a mega church, blah, blah, blah. But none of those things are really the problem. The problem was you did not make the investment to get connected. And that's my plea, do that. If you will do that, you're going to be happy, you're going to be fulfilled, you're going to meet some amazing people, you're going to be well cared for, and you're going to be able to care for other people. So let's all take this next step over the next few weeks. Let's make sure when groups launch, everybody's found a home. And I promise you, if you'll do that, you're going to be thanking our pastoral team for all the work that we've done to build this structure, because it will produce incredible fruit. Any last volley from your heart on all of this?
I think just like the disciples, first century church, they had to pivot, they had to innovate, they had to come up with ideas when they grew, and all of a sudden these widows need help and whatnot.
Yep.
They're building the structure. They're listening to the Holy Spirit. They're talking. They're collaborating. They're praying. We're doing the same thing. We're building the structure as we go, and we might have to pivot. We might have to change here and there, but we're doing all of this for these purposes, to serve people better.
Yeah,
so.
And I love the context. When people got together, there was a tangible sense of joy, and people loved being with each other, and there was a spirit of generosity that was released that stuck out so radically in the community, because love and joy and generosity and all these things are attractional. People are looking for that. It actually becomes one of the main reasons for new believers coming to the Lord is because of the beauty of the culture and the community that's been created. That's what we want. People literally knocking down our doors going, we want what you have. We want to be part of this family because it's so awesome. So thanks again for listening. Help us if you will. We're going to put the link to the Sunday's message in the show notes or the whatever. What is this officially called, man? We're putting the link in the the description. Yeah. There we go. So people will be able to get online and check this out. Share it with friends. We know there are others who probably need to get connected, and I think this podcast will help them. All right. We'll look forward to seeing you next Thursday.